turn-based RPGs. Alright everyone, I promise this is the last time I'm going to hump Cupo 707's leg, but starting off today here, we have Epic Battle Fantasy 3. Now I talked about this one a little bit in the last two episodes here, but what this is the, well, not the original, the Epic Battle Fantasy series itself is the original precursor to Bullet Heaven and Adventure Story and everything else this guy has come out with. This is, as the 3 would imply, the third iteration of this turn-based RPG series Cupo's been putting out for the last forever, and I have to say this is definitely the best one. It's got everything you would expect out of a turn-based RPG and cuts out a lot of the unnecessary, over-encumbering, crazy systems. I mean, you can still go really deep into character customization and specialization, especially as far as the skills and gear goes, and every character in your party has a very specific role, but you still have enough room to kind of wiggle around what you want them to do in there. But it's not, like I said, it's not an unnecessary amount of this stuff. You're not spending 3 hours staring at spreadsheets and trying to figure out how to make your guy do a little more damage with his attacks or what the fuck Alacrity does. None of that ever happens. The stats are all simple and straightforward. The gear is all simple and straightforward. What the strategy really comes down to is how you actually go into battles, which, in my eyes, is the perfect fucking mark in a turn-based RPG. I want the strategy to come out in the fights, not in the character equipment screen in between. And this definitely serves up on that front. Every type of enemy in this game, and especially every boss fight, has a very unique strategy you have to go after to try and take them down. They have different things you need to take care of and things you have to account for, whether it's someone that can charge up a hyper beam that hits your entire team for their entire health bar if you don't do something about it, or the enemy throwing literally an instant death status defect at your party members. It's got enough strategy that you'll have to experiment on the higher difficulties and it makes you feel clever, but not enough that you'll sit there beating your head on the screen for hours. Like every one of this guy's games, epic boss fights, multiple difficulty settings, you can go at this however you want to, and it's also hilarious. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. This game had me laughing my ass off over and over and over as I went all the way through it. I've played more of this RPG than almost any actual retail release, and it's completely goddamn free. It's amazing. Seriously. It doesn't have random encounters. Every fight you see on the overworld, you walk up to the enemy and engage them. So it's not like you're walking around and you just get jumped by someone out of the blue. So you can kind of plan what's going to happen before you go into fights. Like I said, it's free, no cost. Link in the description will send you to go play the game on Congregate. Check it out and have some fun. Break out the Super Nintendos, kids! We've got Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars up next. Now, for anyone who's never heard of this game, this was a joint effort between Nintendo and Square, which is the developer of the Final Fantasy series. And that really comes through in this RPG. What this is, it's a turn-based RPG, obviously. It's the precursor to some of the newer titles, like some of the Paper Mario games, or even, to go newer, Bowser's Inside Story on the DS. But it's a lot more of an RPG. It's got a lot more of that difficulty and the strategy than those newer games do. And when I say difficulty, I mean difficulty. This game is fucking hard. I'm going to warn you that right now. This is a Super Nintendo game that, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little more difficult for those of you who didn't have childhoods to find a Super Nintendo and play this, but I'm sure if you look hard enough, you can find a way. So I don't have any links for you on this one. You're going to have to hunt it down on your own, but it is absolutely worth it. Now, how it basically boils down, if you've played any of the really old Final Fantasy games, like the first couple, it's extremely similar. You have Mario, and then you have 2 other party members that you can swap out between like 6 or 7 different choices by the end of the game. You got all the classic Mario cast in here, as well as a whole bunch of new characters that have never shown up anywhere else. Now, the big selling point this game's got that really differentiates it from a lot of other turn-based things is the same. I'm going to go back to Bowser's Inside Story again, because that's the most recent one I've played. And that is the response system during combat. You don't just hit attack and watch your guy attack. Every attack has a timed element to it. Like, when you send Mario in to attack somebody with a hammer, if you hit the attack button again right as his hammer lands, you'll do a second attack with the hammer. Or if a Goomba comes up to hit you and you hit any button on the controller, right as the Goomba's attack lands, Mario will block it. That stuff's not based on a % chance like it is in a lot of RPGs. Now, I know this, I've mentioned, this system is present in games like Bowser's Inside Story, but it's a lot more hardcore in this game. The margin for error is a lot smaller in Mario RPG, and it's not a complete damage avoid. All it'll do, for enemies attacking you, you'll block around 25% of the damage, and for your attacks, you'll do about 50% more damage if you land the timing. Now, the game never really tells you where the timing is for a lot of the moves, and it's kind of weird. Like, for instance, Mallow's Thunderbolt. You have to hit the button, like, right at the end of the lightning strike, which is nowhere near where I would ever imagine you would have to hit it for it to do the second lightning strike and do the additional damage. But it gives you some play. It's more than just a strategy. It's strategy and reflexive, timing-based gameplay. Like I said, it's got a lot of strategy in there. You can, again, specialize your characters and to a little extent their gear, but the strategy really, again, comes out in the actual in-fight tactics you choose to employ, as well as those timing-based little reflex things. If you can find this, or if you can find where you dropped your childhood, pick up your Super Nintendo. If you had this game dusted off, if you didn't, fear fucking God, find it. It's glorious. I'm sure you can find some way to play this game pretty cheap. Not endorsing illegal things. Moving on. For our last game today, I'm just going to let you guys know I do read every suggestion that comes through in the comments, and from what I've seen on the first 3 Fiscally Responsible Games episode, both the Rin Blade and other guy that's not the Rin Blade have suggested Mardek RPG from Crazy Monkey Games. And alright, I checked it out. This is a game. It's actually 3 separate games, Chapter 1, 2, and 3 by Pseudo Lone Wolf, and they are pretty goddamn amazing. Now, as this is the first game I've put in any of these shows that I am not entirely familiar with, I can't give as comprehensive of a review. But I played through all of Chapter 1 and about an hour of Chapter 2. And I can say the only reason I stopped playing was because if I didn't, you wouldn't see this video for ages until I finished all 3 of them. The game is pretty goddamn great. It's turn-based RPG. A lot of the strategy is put into how you build and equip your party. It's got a similar timing-based system to Mario RPG, but it's a lot more obvious. But instead of just being a passive extra addition to every attack or a block on an enemy attack, you have to actually specialize your characters and build them to have the ability to do more damage with those. They're called reaction or react attacks and react defends. For instance, you don't start the game with the ability to even contextually defend against magic attacks. You don't get that until you get a mage in your party. Or you don't get the ability to really contextually defend physical attacks well until you rank that up on any specific character. Now, the game is... other than that, I mean, there's really not a whole lot about the game itself that's particularly remarkable. There's no one aspect I can really talk about. It's just the game as a whole is a lot of fun. It's really tongue-in-cheek. It makes fun of the entire RPG genre endlessly, and it's pretty funny if that's what you're into. It definitely has it has the random encounters as well as encounters like boss fights that you see yourself walking into before they happen so you can prepare. Like I said, it's split into 3 separate games that are Chapter 1, 2, and 3. If you don't care about story, I'm going to go ahead and recommend you just start on Chapter 2, because Chapter 1 is incredibly slow, and it's really just building up the story, and there's not really any interesting character building or anything that happens in there. And that's my first minor complaint about the game. My only other one is that it really, really looks Flash gamey. I mean, that may not mean anything to you, but if you can't see it here, it's not going to bother you. It's just got that it's a Flash game look. I don't know how to describe it. It just looks really Flash gamey, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. But that's only the higher detail character portraits. I mean, obviously, it's got that retro-style pixelated look for most of the game, and it holds up well for what it is. The characters you make in the first 2 chapters carry over to the third. And the game's even got an occasional Mass Effect-style dialogue choice system where you'll go into a conversation, you can pick a chat response, that'll determine what happens in a given situation. I haven't played the game enough to see how much of an effect they really have, but just having that choice is always nice. And again, the game's completely free. Click the link in the description to go play it right now. Do it. Play this. Go back, play Epic Battle Fantasy 3. And if there is any way on this fucking earth you can get your hands on some Super Mario RPG, seriously, go play that shit if you never have. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. But that's it for today's episode. Go forth and conquer. Enjoy your RPGs, gentlemen.